The Tampa Bay Lightning are halfway to their third consecutive Stanley Cup as they have clinched a berth in the Eastern Conference Final. Adam Denker is here to talk about the possibilities of three-peating, what it would mean, and maybe who the Lightning would rather play in the Eastern Conference Final. All that coming up on this episode of the Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to the Locked On NHL podcast. So glad you could join us today. Thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the show a familiar face to Locked On NHL listeners and viewers, Adam Denker, the host of Locked On Lightning. And Adam, going for some history this year, and your team is halfway home. How do you feel about this? That, you know, not only did you reach the Eastern Conference Final, but did anyone expect a sweep of the Florida Panthers in the last round?
No, Gil. I think there might be some people out there that said they knew from the start that we would have swept Florida, and I would be bold enough to call those people liars, because I think that nobody could have assumed or even predicted that outcome was going to happen, especially after a series such as taxing as the one that they had against the Toronto Maple Leafs prior, and really it was really a culmination of in. Anybody that's been following this Lightning team, you could see over the last couple of years, it almost seems as once they get the really tough series out of the way, they just get better and better. And it almost seems as if the series, as you go along, almost tend to get shorter and shorter. A lot of people don't realize the last two Stanley Cup finals, after going 7 with your boys in the Eastern Conference Finals, the New York Islanders, that the Lightning those series only went to 6 and 5 in the finals. So in really, to think about it, they made somewhat short work considering the amount of games and minutes that they played prior to then. But yeah, it's always nice to see you beat your in-state rivals, especially your divisional rivals. But yeah, to say that it was a pleasant surprise would be a little bit of an understatement.
So what was the key? What did the Lightning do so well that they went out and beat the team with the best record in the league in 4 straight games?
Well, really what the key was to their win and the way they won those games was clogging up the shooting lanes. This Lightning team, you kind of saw hints of it here and there throughout the Toronto Maple Leaf series, and the Maple Leafs actually flipped the script and were doing this. They were blocking almost everything that the Lightning were trying to throw on net. And I guess the Lightning saw that and said, all right, well, why don't we try this against Florida? And they did exactly that. And you saw it in game 3, 5 different Lightning players going down to the tunnel, Steven Stamkos multiple times as Bolts Nation held their collective breath. But that was really what it came down to. Plus, allowing Vasilevsky to get into a groove early on in the series really was the cherry on top. And I think that really that was something that the Florida Panthers couldn't adjust to. You saw they got frustrated pretty early on. And I think as well as their struggles on the power play that we saw in the early stages, going almost 30 consecutive power plays without scoring a goal, I think they really got in their own heads. And that was really one of the defining factors in this series.
Wanted to talk to you about Nikita Kucherov, 11 assists in 11 playoff games, 15 points, leading the team. What has he done so well in this postseason that he's, providing the team with all this production?
Well, really, what the key is for Kucherov is that you kind of treat him like you would treat your star player in the NBA. You just give him possession. You allow him to do what he does best, and that is draw defenders towards him. You've seen one of his patent moves time and time again, especially the last couple of years in the Eastern Conference Finals. He just holds onto the puck till the absolute last minute and either shoots or dishes it off to the open forward or the open bolt player. And really that ability to have almost all 5 players, if you're on the PK 4 on power play 4, to have that ability to have those opposing 5 players almost gravitate towards you to the point to where you're leaving the other players on the ice almost completely alone. That just shows how talented and also how scared and wary the other team is of him getting beat by him, and his ability to dish the puck in moments. We saw it in earlier on in the series, that game winning goal in the final seconds to Ross Colton, that pass from behind the net where he had 2 Panthers defenders on him. Eyes in the back of his head, just unbelievable pass there in that moment. It's that coupled with his ability to score has really made him dangerous and really one of the top players on this team. But the thing that a lot of people aren't really looking at right now, Gil, is the way he's been playing a complete 200-foot game. Even his back checking has been absolutely incredible. Kucherov is definitely not known for his defensive ability, but he's really stepped it up out here in the playoffs.
Wanted to talk about a couple of guys who are leading the team in goals in the postseason, Ross Colton and Corey Perry. Obviously not the first names most casual fans think of when they think about who's going to score for the Tampa Bay Lightning, but these guys are getting the job done.
Yeah, those guys have been absolutely incredible this year. I actually had the pleasure of having them both on Locked On Lightning last summer, and some of my listeners have affectionately called their performance following being guest on my show as the Locked On Lift. Having Ross Colton, even though it's his second year, I think this is an incredible season, almost a career year for him. He is really, you would expect certain players, especially after the season he had prior. His rookie year, only 9 games played, and then playing every single playoff game. Obviously, the biggest goal of his life was in Game 5, which ended up being the game winner against Canadians. You kind of figure a lot of guys would have high expectations and almost be swallowed up by the gravity of that expectations. But Ross really just put his head down. He worked extra harder, and you saw it out there on the ice this year. And really, he has stepped it up and really become one of the rising stars on this team and especially around the league. And as for Corey Perry, I mean, we all know what he could do. We saw it out there at one point in his career, a 50-goal scorer, Hart Trophy winner, 2-time gold medal winner. The resume goes on of all the accolades that the Worm has. And really, I think what the difference this year with Corey Perry, because, let's face it, he's not by any means a spring chicken, but he's also not exactly a dinosaur either. So he's still got a little left in the tank. And I think really one of the big things for him this year is that he doesn't have to go out there and do it all by himself. He's on a line with one of his old friends, Pat Maroon, from their days out in Anaheim. And the ability for him to go out there, and especially on the power play with another one of his friends, Steven Stamkos, to be out to go out there and play with guys that you're familiar with, as well as guys who are also so talented of putting the puck in the back of the net, that allows him to go out there and just have fun. And I think that was really something that he was looking forward to do this year, especially on this team.
The idea of being the first team to win 3 straight Stanley Cups in 40 years practically, do you think that that's in the Lightning's head? Is it pressure? Is it a goal that unites this team? A little bit of both? Where do you see it falling at this point?
Well, I think I think definitely it's a goal that everybody wants to achieve. I don't think it's one of those, well, we failed if we didn't win, because I think this team knows how talented they are. They know when to put pressures on themselves and when to just go out there and let the flow of the game take them wherever it is. And that really starts from the top up with John Cooper. He said earlier this week when he was on making one of his media appearances that, it would be great to go out there and win a 3rd straight, but what they have done in today's modern NHL with winning 2 in a row, that almost somewhat equates to maybe 3, especially with everything that, the salary cap constrictions, COVID, free agency now, players having more freedom to go out there and choose their destination, not like the old days where you kind of were saddled to one horse for the rest of your career unless you were traded. And I spoke about it on my show as well. It really makes you think, does a 3-peat back in the old days equate to a repeat in today's game? And I think it does. I think these guys They know that they're the best team in the league, and right now they're just playing on house money. And I think really the only guy that maybe be a little bit more concentrated, might be a little bit heartbroken about possibly winning a third straight is Pat Maroon, because remember, he's going for his fourth straight, as where other guys. So, he has history on the line as well. And a lot of people don't realize that, Pat Maroon might not be in the conversation for guys that have won 4 straight Stanley Cups in NHL history. But yeah, I think this team, I think they see what they could accomplish, especially what they did to the reigning President's Trophy winners. And there's no added pressure there, but they're definitely going to stay concentrated as the playoffs go on.
Do you have a preference? Would you rather see the Rangers or the Hurricane?
Gil, it's a very hard decision. You know me pretty well. I'm from the New York area as well. I grew up a Ranger fan, so it would be kind of almost a coming full circle, covering the Tampa Bay Lightning, one of my other favorite teams. Growing up, a huge Marty St. Louis fan, and then obviously playing against my hometown team. That would be kind of strange, considering all the back and forth acquisitions that these two teams have had over the years, as well as. But at the same time, I don't want to play with fire. Vasilevskiy's playing great, but why do you want to tempt having to play another hot Russian goaltender who could turn it on at any point, Igor Shesterkin? I think this Ranger team, my Lightning might run into them at some point later on in the next couple of years, but I think right now, I think the best matchup would be Carolina. That little bit of a revolving door of goaltenders they got going there with Freddie Anderson, and Antti Ranta, as well as their inability to just win a game on the road. I don't know. I mean, you're a little older than me, Gil, so maybe you've seen this before, but I have never seen anything like this in my entire life, where a team almost to a certain extent refuses to go out there and win games on the road. So, that
Or to
was
lose at home.
yeah, exactly. And that might be something that might play well into my Lightning team. There's also a lot of history with these two teams, having played in the same division last year, having played each other in the playoffs. And so there's a lot of familiarity there. But I really think that at the end of the day, I think the Lightning know that they're in Carolina's heads a little bit just because of all of that. And I think that'll eventually play in their favor.
Adam, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Well, you could follow the show at LO_Lightning on Twitter, as well as LockedOn_Lightning on Instagram. Give me a follow on Twitter at DenkyDank, DENKYD8NK, and give us a thumbs up and a subscription on our YouTube page. It's been blowing up lately, and we're gonna have a ton of more content coming out as soon as one of these two teams decides to whether or not they want to win the series and face my boys in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Well, we're all looking forward to that, Adam. Thanks as always. Great to have you here.
Always glad to be on, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next year's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts.